Sayın Başkan,
Mr. President,
Sayın Genel Sekreter,
Mr. Secretary General,
çok değerli devlet ve hükümet başkanları,
distinguished heads of state and government,
saygıdeğer delegeler,
distinguished delegates,
sizleri saygıyla selamlıyor.
I greet you all
Birleşmiş
with
Milletler
respect and wish
69. Genel
that the
Kurulu'nun
69th session of the UN General Assembly will provide
halklar ve insanlık için
favorable results for
hayırlara
all
vesile
countries,
olmasını diliyorum.
peoples and humanity.
Başkanlığı üstlenen Sayın
I
Sam
would like to
Kutesa'yı
congratulate
tebrik ediyor.
Mr. Sam Kutesa for his appointment as the President
John William Ash'e
and
de
thank
çalışmalarından
Mr.
dolayı
John
teşekkür
William
ediyorum.
Ash for his work.
Çok değerli delegeler,
Distinguished
Birleşmiş
delegates,
Milletler'in 69. Genel
the
Kurulu'nu
69th session of the UN General Assembly
1914'te başlayan
is being held
Birinci Dünya Savaşı'nın
on the 100th
100.
anniversary
yıl
of
dönümünde
the
gerçekleştiriyor.
First World War in
Birinci
1914.
Dünya Savaşı'na sahne olan
And we sadly
coğrafyanın
see that the geography
aradan
of
geçen
the First
bir
World War
asırlık
is
süreye
still
rağmen istikrar,
deprived of stability,
barış
peace,
ve
and prosperity
refahtan
even
halen
after
yoksun
a
olduğunu
century.
üzülerek müşahede ediyoruz. Irak'tan Suriye'ye,
A wide geography
Filistin'den
ranging from
Yemen'e,
Iraq to Syria,
Mısır'dan
from
Libya'ya,
Palestine to Yemen,
Afganistan'dan
from Libya to
Ukrayna'ya
Afghanistan and to
geniş
Ukraine,
bir coğrafya derin krizler içinde
witness scenes
insanlığın
that leave
vicdanını
deep
yaralayan
scars on the
görüntülere
conscience
sahne
of
olduk.
humanity.
21. yüzyılda hala
People
insanlar
still die
açlıktan,
from hunger
salgın
and communicable
hastalıklardan
diseases in the 21st century.
ve kadınlar
Children and women
savaşlarda
are brutally
hünharca
murdered
katlediliyor.
in wars.
Dünyanın zengin
The poor
ülkeleri
countries
refah
struggle
içinde yaşarken
with
fakir ülkeler açlık,
hunger,
kötü
malnutrition,
beslenme,
communicable
salgın
diseases,
eğitimsizlik
and lack of
sorunlarıyla
education, while the rich
boğuşuyor.
countries of the world enjoy prosperity. Climate change remains as an important test threatening the future of our world
İnsanlığın karşısında
and our children.
önemli bir sınav olarak duruyor. Bu manzara insan
This
onuruna
situation
yaraşır
certainly
bir
does
manzara
not
değil.
befit human dignity,
Ortada bütün insanlığı
because we have problems that directly concern all of humanity and therefore, of course, the United Nations.
Burada Birleşmiş Milletler'in 69. Genel
Let me stress the
Kurulu'nda
following once again at the 69th session of the UN General Assembly
çocukların öldüğü
that no one is innocent in a world in which children die
masum
and
değil.
are killed.
Hiç kimsenin
No one
can
is safe,
güvenliği yoktur. Hiç
and no
kimse
one
de
can enjoy
sürdürülebilir barış
sustainable
ve refah
peace
içinde
and
olamaz.
prosperity.
Sadece geçtiğimiz yıl dünya genelinde 5 yaşın altında
6,300,000 children under 5 years old lost their lives in the world only in the last year.
Suriye'deki savaşta
In the war in
17.000
Syria,
çocuk
17,000 children lost their lives. 375,000 of them were injured,
19.000 çocuk
and
en
19,000
az bir organını
lost at
kaybetti.
least one organ.
Bu yıl içinde Filistin'in
This year,
sadece Gazze şeridinde en modern ve ölüm
490
saçan
children were killed
doğrudan
and
hedefi
3,000 injured as a
490
direct target
çocuk
of the most
katledildi.
modern and murderous weapons
3.000
in the
çocuk
Gaza Strip
yaralandı.
of Palestine.
Kameraların ve objektiflerin karşısında, yani dünyanın gözü önünde
Children playing on the beaches, running around in parks, taking refuge in mosques and schools, curling up in their mother's bosom for safety, were mercilessly killed in front of cameras
yok edildiler.
and before the eyes of the world.
Kadınların, hatta engellilerin katledilmesine
We also see that those who are trying to draw the world's attention to the death of children, women, and even the disabled in Palestine are being labeled in different ways by others. Again,
Suriye'de işlenen
those
cinayetlere,
objecting to the murders in Iraq and Syria and the murder of democracy in Egypt are subjected to certain unfair and groundless accusations and are almost immediately accused of supporting terrorism.
basın özgürlüğü yok diye bazı
The global
ülkelerin
conscience is aware that those ruthlessly criticizing some countries for lack of freedom of press ignore the 16 journalists who were killed in Palestine and the pressure on the media members.
küresel vicdanın dikkatlerinden kaçmıyor. Çok açık söylüyorum.
I will speak very clearly. Those standing by, remaining unresponsive to the killing of children, vicious murders of women, and overthrowing of governments that come to power with the votes of the public through the use of weapons and tanks, are openly participating in these crimes against humanity.
Daha da önemlisi,
More importantly,
modern dünya tarafından sergilenen bu çifte standart
this double standard
çok geniş halk
by the modern
yığınları
world
nezdinde
leads
ciddi bir
to
güvensizlik
significant
oluşturmaktadır.
and serious distrust in a wide
Şu
range of
anda
people.
çatısı altında bulunduğumuz
And this
Birleşmiş
feeling of
Milletler'e,
distrust
uluslararası kurum ve
towards
kuruluşlara
the United
karşı
Nations, where we are, and
vicdanlarda
international
oluşan
organizations,
güvensizlik duygusu,
harms the sense of
adalet
justice
duygusunu zedelemekte,
and leads
milyonlarca
millions
insanı
of people
umutsuzluğa sevk
to
etmektedir.
despair.
Bugün karşı karşıya kaldığımız uluslararası
This
terörün
feeling of
en temel
distrust
beslenme kaynaklarından
is one of
biri de
the main
işte bu
sources of
güvensizlik
power
duygusu.
for the growth of international terrorism
Mazlumlara
that we
yönelik
face
çifte
today.
standart,
The double standard
çocukların
vis-à-vis the oppressed
katledilmesine
and the
karşı
indifference
sergilenen
to the killings of
tüm
children
teröre
act
oksijen sağlamaktadır.
as a lifeline for terrorism all around
Birleşmiş
the world.
Milletler'den ve
Those who
uluslararası
forsake hope
kurumlardan
from the UN
umutlarını
and
kesen
other international
kitleler,
organizations
çaresizlik
are
ve
desperately
umutsuzluk
and
içinde
helplessly
terörün
falling into
tuzağına
the
düşüyorlar.
traps of terrorists.
Irak'ta yaşanan sorunlar
The problems in
Iraklılar
Iraq
için adeta bir yıkıma dönüşmüştür.
have caused major destruction
Son
for the
dönemde
Iraqi
sorun,
people.
Irak'ın
And more
sınırlarının
recently, this
dışına
problem has
taşmış,
spread beyond the borders of Iraq, and unfortunately,
terör örgütlerinin
Iraq has
hareket
become
alanı haline gelmiştir.
a free region for terrorist organizations. And the current crisis in Iraq has a direct effect on countries in the region and particularly on Turkey.
Yeni kurulan hükümetle Irak'ın
With the newly established government in Iraq, we hope that Iraq will make a fresh start.
barış,
Turkey
huzur ve
will
istikrar
keep
için
standing by the people of Iraq for
Irak halkının
stability,
yanında
for their
olmaya
stability
devam
and
edecek.
peace.
Suriye meselesi de
And similarly,
aynı şekilde
the Syrian crisis
sınırları aşmaya başlamıştır.
is now spilling over
Filistin'de
the borders of that
yarım asırdır
country.
devam eden sorun,
And the problem ongoing for a half century in Palestine is already a root cause for many of the problems in the region.
İki devletli çözümün derhal hayata geçirilmesi,
Implementing a two-state solution in Palestine, lifting the blockade over Gaza, and establishing an independent and viable state of Palestine along with Israel is
insani ve
a
ahlaki
political,
bir sorumluluk.
humane, and moral necessity.
Bu kürsüde Filistin, İsrail olmak üzere iki
From
devletli
this
çözüm
rostrum,
konuşuluyor.
many speak about a two-state solution, but speaking about this solution is not sufficient. We need to act.
Artık icra zamanıdır.
It is time to
Laf
act.
zamanı olmaktan bu iş geçmiş.
It is no longer time to speak to this issue. We have to move beyond that because
Hala biz bunu
thousands of people are dying and we are only speaking about this issue
sorumluluk duygumuzun
and not acting on it.
nerelere vardığını
And
göstermesi
I think this
bakımından da
is
tekrar soru işaretleri
a sad
arka
indication
arkaya
of
gelmektedir.
how far our sense of responsibility can only take us at this point at the UN. So we have to move, we have to address these problems as the United Nations without any further delay so that more innocent people do not die and we can achieve a solution. Let me also say that the world is bigger than five.
Birleşmiş Milletler Güvenlik
The
Konseyi
fact that the five permanent members of the UN Security Council
dünya gerçekleriyle
have rendered the
bağdaşmayacak
UN
şekilde
ineffective,
Birleşmiş Milletleri etkisiz hale
despite the
getirmesi,
situation in the world,
küresel vicdanın kabul
cannot be
edebileceği
acceptable
bir durum
to global
değildir.
conscience.
Tüm alınan kararlar bakıyorsunuz bir ülkenin
Because
iki dudağı arasında.
decisions taken here
Eğer
at the
hayır
UN
derse
may be dependent on a single country. If one country does not agree, then decisions are not taken, and they are not therefore implemented. The United Nations has failed to find a solution, as more than 2,000 innocent people were killed within just 2 months in Palestine. In Syria, the UN has failed to find effective solutions, as more than 200,000 people were killed and more than 9 million people were displaced in the last 4 years. And I also find it strange that we focus on issues selectively. 2,000 people are killed by chemical weapons, and we focus on chemical weapons. But on the other hand, 200,000 people are killed by conventional weapons. And we consider killing of 2,000 people by chemical weapons a crime. But what about the killing of 200,000 people by conventional weapons? Is this not a crime? I cannot understand this kind of an approach, this kind of a mentality. We must first sort our understanding out. We have to remember that the use of all kinds of weapons leading to the death of people should be a crime, be it chemical or conventional arms. The elected president in Egypt was overthrown by a coup in Egypt, and thousands of people wanted to defend their choice, and they were killed. But the United Nations and democratic countries have done nothing but watch these events, and the person conducting the coup is legitimized. If we are talking about democracy, then we should respect the choice of the people in the ballot box. If, on the other hand, we're going to defend people who come to power through coups, then I ask the question why we exist as the United Nations. The United Nations is also unable to display an effective stance in the face of uncontrolled events, terrorism and migration in Iraq. And this silence, desperation and unresponsiveness can no longer continue. We need more efficient and swift decision-making mechanisms in order to address global and regional problems. And moreover, the United Nations should act more bravely to remain on the correct side of issues. Distinguished guests, let me point out to another issue. We do not approve any kind of terrorism that is supposedly carried out in the name of religion. We believe that such actions are a huge disrespect to all religions. And we strongly condemn coupling Islam, which means peace, with terrorism. It is indeed very offending that Islam and terror are used together. Similarly, those labeling their inhuman actions as Islamic disrespect the religion of Islam as well as all other religions and humanity. Distinguished delegates, Turkey has been trying very hard to build peace and prosperity in the region. We do not interfere in the internal affairs of any country. We respect the territorial integrity of every country in the region, and we strongly support their territorial integrity. On the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian issue, we have been working for a two-state solution based on peace and mutual respect, and our sensitivity to this Palestinian issue stems from the principle that everybody's right to life is sacred. We've been approaching the issues in our region solely on humanitarian and moral grounds, and not for reasons of race, religion, sect, or interests. We've been sheltering 1.5 million people who had to leave Syria in our country, and mostly by our own means.
Bakınız 1,5 milyon insan
1.5 million people are in my
onları
country.
güvence altında tutuyoruz.
We are
Tüm gıdasıyla,
providing them
ilacıyla,
with food,
eğitimiyle, sağlık
medication,
hizmetleriyle,
education.
bütün bunları biz karşılıyoruz.
We are doing all this as the host
Ciddi
country.
destek geliyor mu?
What about
Maalesef
support from the rest of the world? Unfortunately,
Suriyeli
there is
mülteciler için
not
şu
much
ana kadar
support. So far,
kullandığımız kaynak
we have
3,5 milyar doları aşmış durumda.
spent more than $3.5 billion for the Syrian refugees in our country.
Suriye'deki mülteci var.
And there are about 4 million Syrian refugees in the world at the moment. 1.5 million are in Turkey and the rest are in Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt and other countries.
Buna mukabil
On the other hand, I ask you,
zengin
what about the
ve
rich
güçlü
and
Avrupa
strong
ülkeleri
European countries?
sadece 130 bin
They
Suriyeli'yi
provide
kabul
refuge
etmiş
to
durumda.
only 130,000 Syrian refugees so far. So 130,000 refugees in Europe, and only in Turkey we have 1.5 million, and then plus the 2.5 million refugees in the other countries I listed. The crisis in Syria has become a regional and a global issue, and so much so that it's impossible to remain indifferent to this issue for political and humanitarian reasons. We have also provided treatment to 102 injured civilians from Gaza in our hospitals. Turkey also embraced 30,000 Yazidis who were fleeing Iraq. And just before coming here to New York, Turkey opened its borders to Kurds escaping from Syria. And it was Turkey who provided them with humanitarian aid. And only in the last 5 days, the number of Syrian refugees who have entered our country has exceeded 150,000. We opened our doors to Jews who were expelled from Europe 500 years ago. We always protected the rights of Christians in Europe. And today, we open our arms to those in need, irrespective of their religion, race, or sect. And I'm proud to say that Turkey allocates 21,000 of its national income to humanitarian aid, and as such has become one of the most generous countries in the world. And in addition, thanks to the experience that we have gained throughout history, we have always kept our objectivity regarding terrorism, sectarian conflicts, and other types of crises, and we have always based our approach on defending and protecting rights. And let me say specifically that Turkey is not a country which supports or allows terrorism, because we are a country which has been fighting terrorism. Because Turkey has suffered from terrorism for 30 years, and we still suffer from it. And Turkey is also a country which is strongly against all types of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism. I have personally expressed that anti-Semitism is a crime against humanity, and I may be one of the exceptional few political readers who has so clearly stated this in the world. And in the same way, the whole world should accept that Islamophobia too is a crime against humanity. As Turkey, we would like to see a solution to the problem in Cyprus. As Turkey, we would like to see an end to the occupation of territories in Azerbaijan. As Turkey, we have always called strongly for the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We stand ready to support regional and global peace at all costs, and we will continue to be a unique friend for our friends. We will always stand firmly against terrorism, oppressors, murderers, and especially children's murderers. And we will fight for democracy and prosperity with heart and soul. We are always ready to join forces with other countries within the framework of these ideals and on this common path. And this, indeed, is the kind of cooperation that mankind is in search of. at this moment. In this context, let me also state that we look to your support for Turkey's candidacy for a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council and express our gratitude to the countries supporting us. Towards this end, I wish that the 69th session of the UN General Assembly will start the process for wiping out tears, blood, poverty, and injustice from the face of the earth. And I wish every success to the General Assembly and to Mr. Kutesa, its president, and carry the most sincere greetings of my country to all UN countries. Thank you very much.